What's up, y'all? It's Dominique, aka That Therapist, Lead Clinician and CEO for a group practice known as Yellowbird Counseling, for those of you who may not be familiar with us. So, what does that mean to you, though? Well, one, if you're looking for therapists, Black therapists, female therapists, or, male therapists, then we have those. So if you are in the states of Alabama, Florida, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Tennessee, definitely give us a call. We would love to serve you. But what does that mean for our social media people? Well, we educate the general population on reasons that we all can benefit from a therapist outside of simply just having a mental illness. Because people think, oh, the only reason that I need to go to therapy is if something's wrong with me, or if I'm crazy, or if I'm depressed, or if I'm anxious. No, those aren't the only reasons to go to a therapist. Those are some of the reasons, but there are also other reasons. So we discuss topics that we all can relate to and tie it back to how we all could benefit from a therapist. So y'all know this month I have been bringing on a different Yellowbird ambassador therapist every week to discuss a different topic. So this week we've got number 5, therapist number 5. She'll be coming on with us. So without further ado, I always say that. Hey, Jennifer.
Hi.
You got that hair leg.
Girl, don't even talk about it. I'm missing some inches.
It's okay, because you know it's going to grow right back.
We're going to see.
It'll grow back. Yes.
Feel bald-headed.
Y'all please share this too, because it's going to be a real interesting topic. I was able to listen in on the podcast. So please share this. There's at least one person on your timeline who feels very alone and doesn't feel supported. So please share this so that they can get the information that they need in order to get the relief that they need. And you're also helping with the effort to break the stigma surrounding mental health, mental illness, by sharing and informing. So thank you. All right, so let's get to it.
Okay.
Let's get to it. First, you had a podcast. Tell us a little bit about the podcast that you were listening to.
Okay, so listen. My disclaimer is, don't tell nobody I said this. I didn't know that podcasts were for people who look like me.
What? Really? What? Why am I not here? Okay. There you go.
So I did not know. I was being nosy on my iPhone and found this little purple button app on it and opened it, and my eyes were opened. So as a part of my trying to hone in on my therapeutic skills and figure out, unique ways to give homework to my clients, because I am big on homework. My clients know that. I was like, people busy. And if we don't really have time to come in the office and we're doing telehealth things now, I just want the homework to look a little bit different than typically like writing, sometimes journaling, that stuff. So I started listening to some of the podcasts, and to be honest, it helped me. And I just wanted to share the wealth. And so I found this particular podcast, and it stuck out to me. Because it caused me to do a lot of like soul searching. It caused me to do some reflection. And many of the podcasts that I share with either my coworkers, my friends, or my clients, like most of the time I get really good feedback from it. Anytime I assign homework in a podcast format, I listen to it first just to make sure it's not fluff. So, the one podcast that I found, which is what really inspired me to want to do this one today, was the one that was called Balanced Black Girl. Okay. And so it's episode 111. And it's entitled Let People Show Up for You. So I was listening to this podcast in my quiet time, which is typically when I take my shower. And when they, excuse me, when they got into it, I was like, oh, this is going to be good. So what prompted me to want to do this live? I struggle. I am a recovering superwoman, a person with a superwoman complex. I have talked to so many clients who look like me, feel like me, who have been operating in the same space. And so the superwoman complex is a thing within itself. But the thing that this podcast, what drew my attention to it was I realized I struggle with letting people show up for me. It feels unnatural, confusing. A lot of things came up as I listened to the podcast. And so what I wanted to do this evening is to kind of speak to individuals on both sides of the spectrum, in that sometimes we don't know how to show up for people, especially the ones who seem like they got it all together. They seem like they're the strong friend, a strong family member, the go-to person. But I also want to speak to the people on the other side in my shoes, wondering, where is my help? Why has nobody shown up for me? Why ain't nobody checked on me? And you see so many times their posts about, like, check on your strong friend. Like, it's legit. Check on your strong friend. Because people, of course, are fighting battles that we don't really know about. But basically, I just want to help kind of bridge the void or the gap from being the friend who doesn't necessarily know how to check in or haven't thought to check in, and also being the friend that needs somebody to check in, or being that person who needs somebody to check in. So that's what's kind of motivating me in this space this evening.
I think this is such a great topic because, like you said, I see a lot on social media, people going off on, don't do this if you haven't checked on me, or don't say that, or, just saying different outpouring or outcries of people just not really feeling that they mean anything to anybody else. Mm-hmm. So it's like a super common thing, whether a person admits it or not. I think to some degree or at some point we have all struggled with that. Mm-hmm. Especially in the Black community, just because of different other traumas that have led us to be neglectful. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I thought it was a great idea. I was like, yeah, definitely something that we need to discuss. So, as kind of incorporating what you got from the podcast, like, how would that translate into, like, helping a client that feels that that maybe they don't have any support?
Right. So typically, early on in a session with me, I ask things about, like, some core foundational things that oftentimes we are lacking or we need to work on as individuals in therapy. And so being a person that's in therapy myself, I often kind of glean from that, my own experiences as a client. And typically I kind of start with my clients about boundaries, if they have any, their communication style, whether they are passive, aggressive, or assertive. Most of my clients are passive. And so oftentimes recognizing that piece is what helps to kind of bring things to this point about how we can communicate our needs better. Because for the person who tends to be passive, that may be a learned trauma response. Like, you have learned to shut up and be quiet, and if you can't take care of it yourself, nobody else, don't call nobody to rescue you. Like, you have learned to not ask for help. The problem with that is, and I'm speaking from personal and professional experience, the problem with that is oftentimes when you are passive for so long and your needs are not being met, you're gonna jump over being assertive and telling people what I need. You're gonna become aggressive. Mm-hmm. That's oftentimes when you may also see a mixture of passive aggressive type behaviors that show up, like the Facebook posts, the social media, don't nobody check on me, or if I die today, don't be at my funeral, baby. You ain't gonna be at your funeral. You wouldn't know one way or the other. But like I see a lot of those kind of things on social media, and it's like I get it because I've been there, but the healthy version of me is like, hey, sugar, if you need somebody to check on you, if you need something, use assertiveness and start telling people, hey, I am struggling. I need some some time. I need somebody to hang with me. I need a meal. Like I'm having some thoughts. I need somebody to pray with me or pray for me. Like we gotta learn how to start telling people what we need. And so at this point, I want to just kind of interject why I think this is so important. Because on a personal level, when I listen to this podcast, a significant relationship popped in my mind. It was a friendship that I had with someone several years ago, and me and this person were best friends for years. And very long story short, at some point throughout the years, our relationship kind of waned in terms of like we got older, life kicked in, marriage, kids, all those kind of things. But nevertheless, my friend at the time was going through something really significant in her life. And I didn't, she told me about it, but when we talked about it, we were long distance and I thought things were okay. And so we talked about it a while later. And after we processed and talked, I was like, I did my praying behind the scenes, and I was like, I shoot a text every now and then, but I didn't know what it was like to be in her shoes at the time. And life continued to go on, and then it was time for me to get married in 2017, and I reached out to my friend, nothing, no feedback, no nothing. And I went through a myriad of emotions, sadness, anger, confusion, but mostly sadness and confusion. Um, and so years went by even more. And I reached out to this person last year. And I was like, I just was kind of keeping up with how they were doing in life on the outside anyway. And I was like, hey, I know we haven't talked in a long time, but I just wanted to let you know I see you. I'm so proud of you. I'm so excited for where your life is right now. And it took them a couple days, I suppose, to get back to me. But they told me, one, I didn't even know if I wanted to respond to you. Two, they basically told me that when they came to me years ago with what they had going on in their life, they felt like I was not there for them. I didn't show up for them. And it basically destroyed their friendship. And so years had gone by and I had no clue what caused our friendship to go away. And typically we like to be like, well, I'm the one that was offended, I'm the one that was hurt, but it was me. Like I had to own where I fell short in that friendship. And at the time when I realized the friendship wasn't what it was going to be anymore, I was hurt. But present day, I had to just charge it as like a hard lesson learned. When that person communicated to me where I had fallen short with them and not supported them in the ways that they needed me to, they also said something important, which was I had an expectation that was not met by you, but maybe it was unfair for me to expect you to show up in whatever way I needed you to. So it was a lack of communication, a lack of understanding that basically led to a really important relationship in my life ending. Um, and I'm not even saying that we don't even talk now, but it was helpful, I guess, to kind of get that feedback, even though it was kind of hurtful to hear it. So that's why I'm speaking today as one who has been a friend who didn't show up. I've been the person who I didn't know how to show up. I did not know how to relate to what they were going through. And at the same time, that person also made me understand too that even though I seem to have been the one who fell short, sometimes you can't do anything about something you don't know.
Yeah.
That's where the assertiveness comes in. And this is why I try to model for my clients in sessions like, let me show you how to make those I statements. I need, I like, I feel this way. I appreciate this. I don't appreciate this. Those kinds of things, because I've had to learn the hard way. And one of, like I said, a very important relationship in my own life, that the communication has got to be put out there. Now, if you tell me I need XYZ and I'm supposed to be someone significant to you, and I still don't show up and I have the knowledge and the information, then we got to look at something else, because it's like, okay, now I'm choosing to not show up for you. But in my example, with my own experience, I didn't know how. And so now, like I said, when that podcast came on, I was like, okay, you talking to me. Okay. Let me spread the word, because this is important on both sides.
Exactly. And the thing that you kept saying, and that I heard in the podcast, the two things is boundaries and communication. Mm-hmm. I heard those two things, and communicating. And I always say, like, you can't expect people to follow a guideline that you have not vocalized or put out there, and that's where learning how to communicate comes in. So if you're not able to voice something, then we have an even deeper issue of, communication. Mm-hmm. And even with the podcast, they were saying, some people just don't know how. So that right there shows how big of an issue and how vital communication is in a relationship. Mm-hmm. Because as you shared in your example, a lack of communication really just spoiled a friendship that maybe didn't even have to be spoiled, And I like that she even mentioned, the steps before just cutting someone off. Mm-hmm. Making sure, like you said, communicate what you need. If I have the information and I don't do it, then that's on me.
Right.
But if you don't give me the information, I'm just bumping around, because as she was saying in the podcast, people probably aren't mind readers. Then, I mean, all I can do is what I know, and what might be best for me might not be best for you.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah.
And another thing that she brought up in the podcast was the idea about not always feeling the need to cut people off when they don't meet expectations. So in the lady's example from the podcast, she was talking about, so say you have a group of friends around you that are like your best friend, them your homies, that's your crew, those are your people. Okay, so they're close to you. Now, it may be somebody in your bunch that's you've been knowing since you was 5 years old, and the relationship really has not been fruitful, productive, but you just hanging on to them because it's I know you all my life type thing. And so say you find yourself in a place in life where you need your friends to show up for you. Okay. Your friends know it, but one of your friends is like, you're gonna have to be okay because I can't deal with it. Or girl, you so crazy. You always bounce back. You all right, you fine, you don't need nothing, or that friend is just not really attentive to you. Now, this is somebody you've been knowing for a very long time that you hold close to you just simply because y'all got history. Mm-hmm. Well, what the lady in the podcast was saying is you don't always have to just cut people off when you feel like they didn't meet your expectation, they didn't show up for you. What she was talking about in terms of boundaries is moving them back to create space for someone else who will show up for you, mm-hmm. who has shown themselves like, I got your back. I'll be consistent. I'll show up for you. I'll talk to you. I'll check on you just randomly. Like, hey, girl, you was on my mind. Like, they will do those things that friend that you've been knowing since you were 5 years old was not doing. And so you don't have to hold people in that close proximity to you emotionally. You don't have to do those things anymore. And you also don't really have to cut them off completely, mm-hmm. because maybe they are cool people. Maybe they are decent people. But maybe they just don't deserve to have a title of like best friend or, like my sister or my brother. Like sometimes you have to just kind of put a boundary there where you are mindful and you manage your own emotions and expectations and say, you cool to hang out with, but now I understand I can't come to you with something that's, really serious in a crisis because you probably don't know how to handle me or handle what I got going on. So I don't have to rid my life of you, but I'm gonna make space for somebody else who knows how to show up in the way that I need them to show up. And
Yep.
so I thought that was important too, because everything is not always black and white. Like either you down for me or you not. Either you show up or you don't. Like it don't work like that all the time, because you don't know what your friends have going on. And sometimes people literally may not have the emotional capacity to be there for you when you got stuff going on, because
Right.
you got stuff going on. So that's why I thought that part was important too, about the boundaries. And if you really close with somebody, if you really have a genuine relationship with someone, here goes that assertive communication. Tell people. Friendship
Mhm.
is not all about laughing and jokes and movies and out to eat and brunch. And it's like, friend, I was going through something and I'm in a better space, but because I value our relationship, I gotta be honest with you. I feel like you didn't show up for me. Like that's part of having those difficult conversations with people, when you learn how to be assertive, that you're willing to do that. And if I'm your real friend, I'll tell you, even if I don't give you my whole long sob story, I may just tell you, you know what, you're right, and I apologize.
And I think that two things. First, I like what you said about making that distinction of like it's not just you're all in or you're all out.
Mm-hmm.
I know me and Kayla both tell our clients about having percentages. Like I might have a friend, oh, you're a 10 percenter. Like I can't really count on you, but when we out having fun,
Yeah.
it's fun. That's cool. That's what your purpose is. Then I might have my 50 percenters who half the time I can depend on them, half the time I can't. So it's just like, maybe you're a friend, but it's real hit or miss with you. But you're still
Mm-hmm.
cool. Maybe you respect me. Maybe you meet my non-negotiable boundaries for friends, but you just like aren't consistently there. And
Right.
then you have your people that are up high, like your 80, 90, 70, 80, 90 percenters, but it's not going to be that many people.
Right.
That's another thing to really understand, is that everybody's not going to arrive up here at the top. Some people are going to, probably most people are going to fall somewhere in the middle
Mm-hmm.
there. And it's just knowing and being okay with adjusting your expectation to whatever their percentage is. So I like, that you highlighted that.
Mm-hmm.
But two, you said something about, shoot, I was trying to hold both things in my head and I dropped one. Um, oh, when you were saying something along the lines of letting people, but definitely letting people show up, but it was very specific, because I was going to say my comment to it was that oh, communicating and telling somebody when they don't show up for you. Um, I know the first thing that popped in my head is times when I have done that and people gaslight you. They'll
Mm-hmm.
say, "Oh, you're so sensitive," or "Oh, you're so whatever," or "Oh, you're overreacting," or "Oh, that's childish for you to bring that up." And I always bounce back to say, first of all, me expressing myself, my emotions, and letting you know how your action impacted me is anything but childish.
Right.
But I know everybody's not there. So, like, what would you say to a client that, if you're like, okay, well, you gotta, let someone know, or how do you feel about letting that person know? Because I know that's the response my clients give me is, oh, they're just gonna XYZ, cut me down, devalue it, minimize it. What would you say to that person?
Right. So I've actually sent this podcast to a client who has a specific issue with several of her quote unquote friends. And so she, shared with me a time where one of her supposed to be best friends had a baby. Excuse me, had a baby, and she, was under the impression that she was going to become the godmother for the baby. And then the baby gets here, and then the baby has a whole another godmother that my client didn't even know about. She didn't know that her best friend was close with another girl. And client said she went to her and she, told her like, I'm really excited and happy that you had the baby. Keep in mind her friend had been pregnant 9 months. You've been pregnant for 40 weeks, and you haven't said anything about the godmother being anyone other than me. And so when she told the friend, she said the friend actually laughed and was like, "Are you seriously mad about that? Like, oh, well, the baby can just have two godmothers." And, my client was like in tears as she was telling me this. And she was like, that's not what I was looking for. What I was looking for was to be heard and not laughed at. Like, okay, yeah, to you it may seem like, girl, you tripping over a baby that's not even yours. But the root of that was my client held her friend closer to her than it appeared that her friend held her. And so in that space, that's when I would pull in the piece about you making the decision, do I want to continue to have any ties to a person who tends to gaslight me? Regardless of if we came out the womb together, it doesn't matter at some point. Like, do I want to have any ties to you? Do you still deserve to have a place in my life? Should I even be investing any more emotions into what we have going on, what we've had going on, if the majority of my emotions, if they're not having a good time with you, they are basically being thrown in my face as though my emotions are weakness, or I'm childish, or I'm insecure, or I'm too sensitive. The thing is, like, when we have people that are close to us, not just friends, but when we have people that are close to us, you tend to know your people's weaknesses, their shortcomings. And so to have that kind of thrown in her face, like almost dismissive, like, girl, okay, you can be the baby godmother too. It's like, no, because I bought a lot of stuff. This is what my client is saying, about a lot of stuff for the baby. I just been so excited about the baby. I helped do your baby shower. Like, we've been friends since we were like 4 or 5 years old. Like, I think she wrongly assumed that she would have this role, and it was painful. And so even though she shared with me, now that I think back on it, she actually was tearful and crying as she talked to the friend, and the friend did not really seem moved by her tears. The friend did not seem remorseful or empathetic to how she was feeling, or understood where she was coming from. And so, like I said, my thing was to go back to that point, like the podcast talks about, is everything does not have to be black and white. Do you either terminate the friendship because it's like, okay, no, I don't even want to be in your life anymore. Is it worth that response, or do we need to pull that friendship out a little bit more than just saying, "Oh, this is my best friend"? Because maybe this is not best friend material right now. Not mean you got to cut her off, but maybe pull her back from that space that's so close to your heart because you feel deeply. And apparently this person ain't got the same mutual depth of feeling for you in terms of the friendship. So that was my feedback to the client, was you have the right to make a decision about how close you allow yourself to remain to someone who will kind of be dismissive, laugh at how you feel, treat you as though you tripping and wilding out because you thought one thing and you found out something else, and now you're hurt about it. Instead of the friend saying, you know what, I apologize that I didn't communicate with you that this was going to be the baby's godmother, or I apologize that I didn't ask you, or we didn't have a discussion. It would have even probably been more appropriate to say, well, so-and-so, I really wish you had just come to me and said, like, I would like to be the child's godmother, or I would like to be considered. But that was not the response that my client got. And so now it's like, so now what? Are we still friends, or should I just kind of back away and lick my wounds and just kind of keep moving?
And so I always ask, and this is one thing I do with my clients. I have them develop boundaries for every relationship. So at that point, I'll say, let's go back to your boundaries for friendship list. How much of that list is this person fulfilling? So they have on that list, they'll have negotiables and non-negotiables. Are they still fulfilling the non-negotiables? Okay, so maybe should we have a conversation with them, try to let them know, what is their emotional intelligence like? If it's low, is that a non-negotiable for you? Because that's a sign somebody who puts your like invalidates how you feel about something just because maybe they wouldn't feel that way, or even defend it, being defensive because to some degree they know they were wrong or feel some sort of um, you know, feel some sort of responsibility. So they'll say, oh, that's so little or whatever. Like, okay, so at that point, like, where do you stand with having people with lower emotional intelligence? Because they're going to be harmful if you're a person that likes to express yourself. So, and does communicate and use your words. It just doesn't seem to be a good mix. But that's the point you reevaluate this person in their entirety. Where do they fit? Okay, they meet some of the non-negotiables, and then they meet a lot of the negotiables, like the surface stuff. So okay, at that point, we just hang out. We might not go over each other's house or, like you said, be best friends. We might just hang out and just know that that's where that person is in your life. So, but the part of the podcast too that I like, she was talking about the birthday example. I literally had a client with that same thing come up about, asking people, like literally almost the exact same story. And I'm just like, that's common to be like, oh, well, no, I'm not. My birthday is not a big deal. It's not a big deal. But yes, it is.
Right.
You don't want to ask people. So how do you think that would develop? How does a person get to that point where they start to undermine their own values?
So I talk a lot about core beliefs with many of my clients. And I think education, like knowing what some of the things that influence who we are as adults matters. And our core beliefs play a humongous role in that. Our core beliefs are established basically from the start. We get here, we can't walk, we can't talk, but we have caregivers, we have people that are in our close family unit, we have playmates, we have classmates, we have teachers. Basically, our core beliefs teach us how to view ourselves, how to view others, and how to view the world. And we learn those things based on how we are treated. So when you're small, you get a lot of information. Reassurance, comfort, nurturing. Do people come when I cry? If I say I need something, am I heard? Are my needs being met? If I say I don't want something, I don't like something makes me uncomfortable, am I taken serious or am I being dismissed? Growing up, did I have birthday parties? Did people often, say, well, hey, baby girl, we can't stay, but here $5 for your birthday. Did I pin something on your shirt? Did we go to Chuck E. Cheese when that was a thing? It just really just depends a lot on like where we came from in our own personal experiences, even if it seems unconscious that we don't remember a lot. So how that manifests in adult life is we are sometimes groomed and taught, even if it's not verbally taught, that certain things about us don't matter. In worst case scenario, we are taught that in essence, we don't matter. We don't matter. Birthdays don't matter. Anniversaries don't matter. What you want don't matter. And you kind of feel this thing where you just feel like I should just fade into the background. And the crazy thing is, I have gotten really big into Enneagrams.
Me too.
And so I have been doing many of them with my clients during the session, or sometimes I'll give it as homework to complete. And I've recognized after doing my assessment that I am a 2.
Me too. Of course, we're therapists. What does that mean?
I am a 2. So if you're not familiar with the Enneagrams, basically it's an assessment that you take. I would kind of equate it similar to like the Myers-Briggs, where you kind of find out your personality type. For me, I prefer the Enneagram because I can remember a number better than I can remember letters, even though it's just 4 letters. But nevertheless, for the 2s, We are the helpers, right? So what I looked at in doing the assessment and then reading the script, the background, the dialogue, and the information about Enneagram Type 2s is at some point in our life, we were taught or we've learned the more I help, the more important I am.
Mm-hmm.
And so we became people pleasers. We became yes people with no boundaries. And we became passive. We never let our needs be known. Something in our background, something in our history has influenced that idea. So going back to your reference in the podcast, she was talking about like it got to a point where she was disappointed so many times from trying to plan really nice things for herself because really nobody was planning things for her. So she was trying to plan things for herself, plan things for her birthday, outings, dinners, and people would not show up. So what that taught her was, even though nobody came out and said it, what it taught her over time is this day is not important. So what she did was, unfortunately, bottom to the hype. This day is not important. So then she comes into contact with people who are big on birthdays. Like, girl, what we doing for your birthday? It's your birthday month, girl. Like, we finna count down. We're gonna have a good time. And then now you have a person like in the podcast, she's saying, nigga, I'm probably just gonna go ahead and go to work and maybe, pick up some food and just head on home. Like it's not that big of a deal. But that's really what makes us people and how we respond and interact and what we believe about ourselves. Our core beliefs are still being formed even as adults. So her experiences taught her to have no expectation, to just not even put forth any more effort, any more wanting, because when you get hurt enough, you just be like, nope, don't worry about it. You get disappointed enough, you be like, nope, don't trust nobody, don't ask somebody for anything, because people are not going to show up for you. And that's what she learned from just that particular history of people not showing up just for something as simple but important as her birthday.
Yep. And it's so weird because she probably was a 2. I know my client that had that very same issue as a 2-wing 3. I'm like, of course. I'm like, nah, you got to say something. You got to say, you got to. This is for your own mental health because you're going to be resenting people that probably want to be there. And then she said something and her friends end up throwing a big situation, you know? And I'm like, now, aren't you glad you said something? I had to encourage you to say something because it didn't have to be a sad day. It could be a happy day, and it ended up being a happy day. So yeah, but those of y'all that maybe want to know more about the Enneagram, it's really cool. I like that it tells the positive and the negative sides. And so you can learn how to manage, because a lot of times we'll do things, we're like, I don't know why I do that. I've always been like this, blah, 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 blah. Well, the Enneagram will spit it out to you. It'll put a name to that behavior and tell you probably where that behavior comes from. And then your therapist, like me or Jennifer, who use it, we can help you build coping skills and boundaries around your personality type. I've even used it to help clients that aren't sure what career they should go into. I've used that to help them kind of narrow down career interests and things they should go into. And I have a client that's actually in the master's program now, getting their counseling degree, because that really just fit their personality. Like, that's what it was. And they are the happiest they have ever been. So I use eclectic energies, but I was going to tell y'all, I did an Enneagram series, I think it was last year, on all the different types and the wings. So if y'all want to scroll back, you can, or you can go to the website and go under the archives, or you can go to the Yellowbird Counseling page and find under videos, and you'll see all the Enneagram. We did all of them 1 through 9 and explained them all. So you can go and look if you want. And if you want to take it yourself, I'm putting that in the comments, eclectic energies. I think I'll put it in the comments. But yeah, it's a really cool quiz to take. And if you're not in therapy, it would be good to take whatever your results are to your therapist. They can help you interpret them and put some details to it. So yeah, I was just saying that. Y'all please share this live too, because there's a lot of good information and someone on your timeline needs it. So please share and aid us in the effort of breaking the stigma surrounding mental health. Yes. Okay. So cool. So what are some action steps that people can take who either may need to reach out more, and then what are some action steps people that maybe need to ask more for help? What are some simple action steps they could take?
Okay. So I'll speak to the recipient, the one who has the need first. Typically, in my experiences, I have tried to tough things out on my own. And I know I'm not the only person who's done that. And maybe people still actively doing it right now. Because I struggle with it too. But I'd like for people to recognize that we are not made to be islands. We're not made to go through life alone with no help, with no support. Like, that's really not the healthiest way to, move through life. So, one, recognize that needing assistance, needing people to help you or show up for you is not weakness. Like, just like knock that idea out. Like, it's not weak to need help sometimes. Because you ain't gonna have all the answers and you the one with the problem. Like, it's just it just don't work that way. So that would be my first bit of encouragement. I don't like to give advice. Encouragement would be recognize that we are all people first. And as people, we are prone to error, but we are also going to need assistance at some point in time in our life. Having people who show up for us is also a good form of our social self-care, right? But if you are the person who has typically struggled with saying, hey, I'm in need, I think my biggest piece of advice is not just to acknowledge you have a need and acknowledge that it's not weak to have a need, but my other, piece of encouragement would be this is learn who you can trust to tell your needs to, because that's a big part of what I had to learn through trial and error. A lot of it was learning who to trust and who could hold things that I needed to pour out. And so I have like a spiritual mother, I have a group of friends, I have my husband, I have my mama, but everybody that's in my circle, they don't all serve the same purpose. So everybody in my social, emotional, spiritual support system does not know every aspect of the same version of Jennifer. They just don't. Because some pieces, like my spiritual mother, I can tell her certain pieces of me. One of my best friends, like, I know if I be around her, me and her gonna have a good time. But certain pieces of me, she don't always get the full, scope of. So if you're the one who is struggling with finding out, like figuring out, like, where can I turn to? Who could I turn to? Find out the people that you know that you can trust. That's not gonna backbite you. That's not gonna throw things back up in your face. That's not gonna, tell you one thing and then behind your back be like, oh my gosh, Jean always needs something. She always going through something. Like, I've been in that space before. It's very uncomfortable. It's very hurtful. Trying to confide in people and then realize they only just want to be around you for the tea, but they don't really want to support you. And so you have to be selective about that, but don't knock getting to know people and letting people get close to you to trust you, and you trust them. So that would be my other piece of encouragement. The last thing I probably would say to the one who needs to allow people to show up is just that let people show up for you. One thing that the lady in the podcast mentioned that was so important to me as a recovering superwoman is this. She said we have to learn how to create space for people to show up for us. So I'm an examples kind of person. So in my example would be this. Say you're going through something in life. Life is hard. You didn't run into a brick wall, or things are on fire. You know you got a lot of stuff going on. There are people around you that would more than likely be willing to help you. But picture this. You're facing a corner in a room and your back is to the door. The help, the friends, everybody is behind you, ready to show up for you if they know you have a need. Or they may see you have a need, but you are facing this corner and now you are in this corner. They can't get to you. There is no space to navigate, to get in front of you and say, hey, you ain't got to be strong right now. I got you. Tell me what you need. I don't know how to be there for you, but I just want you to know I'm willing to be there for you. So when you are the strong person, we got to learn how to be a little bit more vulnerable, to turn out that corner and say, you know what? I am struggling. I do have these things going on. I'm not okay. Like, you got to be able to do that. You got to make space for people to kind of get around you, to help you and love on you. Okay. Now, if you are the person that was me in my first example, that don't know how to show up, or that's unsure of what to do, ask. I am learning as I get older. If somebody drops in your spirit, if somebody drops on your heart, if anything just crosses your mind, even if you have a memory and you haven't checked on that person in a while, I haven't heard from them, you ain't got to be best friends with them. Sometimes people just need to know that they matter to somebody. Shoot a text. Hey girl, you was on my mind. Hey fam, how you doing? Hey dude, I ain't seen you in a minute. You doing okay? You just crossed my mind. I remember the other day, or the other day for me, it could be years ago. But I could say something like, the other day I remember when we was, in the band and this and this, and I just wanted to see how you was doing, see how life was going. If it's somebody that you're close to though, sometimes the people that we're closest to, they still struggle, and it's hard to know how to help them. Ask. I have found myself going from really passive in my life to becoming really resentful towards people, because they did not show up for me when I was going through stuff. Whether they knew I was going through it or not, I found myself angry, bitter, and not trusting of people. Because in my mind, at that time, how could you not know I was going through something? How could you not see the change in my behavior, that my tears, my this, my that? How could you see that and not show up for me? But when you the person anybody come to for prayer, for assistance, for resources, for feedback, a listening ear, money, blessing, whatever the case may be, like, sometimes people usually have no clue when you are struggling. Because you've been strong for so long, that's all people expect from you. That's why that superwoman complex is so toxic to have. That superman complex is so toxic to have. But yeah, that would be really my encouragement, my feedback to both parties.
Yeah.
Space for people to show up, but if you even have an inkling that something may not be right, that somebody may be going through something, it may not even be a big life-ending thing, like a end of the world type thing, but it could just be, you know what, friend, I ain't heard from you in a minute. You even posting on social media in a while. You okay? You fasting from Facebook? You good? And if you kind of get engaged with that, you might get something. The last thing I would say on both sides is this, though. If you find yourself in a space where you do reach out and you don't get the support that you need coming back in, try to be mindful to not have that hot and cold, left or right, black or white mentality. Because again, we are dealing with other people. And as people first, we are prone to error. We are going to fail at some point in time. And we have our own struggles and battles to get through every single day. So if you come to me as a friend, as a wife, and or as a daughter, as a sister, whatever the thing may be, if you come to me and I'm not there for you in a space that I typically would be, remember who I typically am to you, and just know that if I was able, I would definitely show up for you.
Yeah.
Like that's how you. I would encourage you to start treating people that historically have been there for you, but may have fallen short a few times. Like, don't throw people away just because they fell short. They didn't meet your expectation. That would be the end of my little sermon.
Well, thank you. It was very, very informative. I'm so glad that we decided to do this. I know when I listened to it, I was like, I was just saying that to my own therapist the other day, especially the part about history. I was like, you know what my problem is? I'll hang on to someone over some history. But it's like, that's not fair, because I tell my clients, just because somebody is a family member, if they're toxic, they're hurting you, that does not mean you have to keep them around just because they're your family, just because they've known you all their life. So I gotta be listening to that too. Like, no, just because of history, history might give me some time to do what you were saying, Jennifer, as far as like, let's see maybe where you can fit. But if you continue to hurt me at every level I put you at, it's probably time to let you go.
Yeah, you gotta go.
Yeah. You like, if I can put you in a different capacity and you thrive better there, maybe it's not as close. That's cool. But if every capacity you are consistently being harmful, that's the point. So if you guys listening or watching, if you're having trouble communicating your needs and wants, if you're having trouble deciding at what point you need to do what with relationships, these are things you can come to a therapist about. These are things you can call us. We can help you through, because we understand, relationships can be a delicate issue. And it's not just as easy as, here's the action, make the action. Sometimes we have thoughts that are barriers. So you may need help learning how to build boundaries, or what your boundaries even are. And then how to communicate those, and then how to implement them, and then how to decide what you want to do with your relationships as it relates to all that. So that can be a lot.
Yeah.
So definitely feel free to call us or go to the website, yellowbirdcounseling.com. Again, that's yellowbirdcounseling.com. And you can book a consultation. And yeah. Thank you so much, Jennifer. Did you have any last remarks for the people before we let you go?
I just want to give you all the information about the podcast one last time. So it's called Balanced Black Girl. Okay. This is episode 111. Let people show up for you. Okay. If you have not gotten the podcast, let them bless you. I think they've been doing wonders for me, for my own emotional, mental self-care. And my clients have given me nothing but good feedback from them as well. Yeah.
Awesome. Balanced Black Girl, episode 111, letting people show up for you.
Yes.
Very, very good. Very good. Yeah. And if y'all are in the text community, then I will definitely put it in there for you guys to listen to. If you're not in the text community, then you want to go to yellowbirdcounseling.com, subscribe to the newsletter so you'll know. There's another reason you may want to subscribe, because you'll know when we do our $100 Cash App giveaways. So you can go to yellowbirdcounseling.com, subscribe to that newsletter. You'll know what the text community number is. You'll know when we do discounts on gear. You'll know also too when I'll be doing the $100 Cash App giveaways. So that's how you stay tuned. All righty, Jennifer is number 5. She's number 5, and she'll be back soon But thank you so much for coming on with me tonight.
Of course, thank you for having me. I was nervous, but it all worked out fine.
No, you did great. Y'all be nervous and be great. It'd be fine. So, and we love your hair.
Well, I appreciate it.
We do. You have a good evening.
Okay, you did the same. Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye. All right, guys. So next week we will have a different therapist on to discuss our next topic. Like I said, I'm highlighting different therapists in the nation all this month. So definitely be sure to tune in. Okay. And like I said, if you need our services and you live in Alabama, Florida, Mississippi, Tennessee, or Louisiana, go to yellowbirdcounseling.com and we will be able to set you up with one of our amazing therapists on our team. But until next week, until next week, y'all have a good one. And I'll talk to y'all soon. Bye.